All right, SuperCoaches, strap in because this is the official AFL SuperCoach podcast, your in and out guide to the greatest game on earth. That's right, AFL SuperCoach. Might not feel this week, I'll tell you that one. Oh, geez, it's a bit of a rough one here. Geez, watch out. But we do have round 11 in the bag, round 12 to preview. And I'm your host, Jaymz Clements, but joining me are three of the greatest SuperCoach minds on this here big blue marble we call the planet Earth. That's right, there's no Al Payton this week, but in his place, in his actual chair, it's Patch. What's going on, Patch?
Hello. I am unqualified for this chair. Not quite at guru level. And what an awful, terrible, no good round of SuperCoach. Let's never speak of it again.
I'm just going to burn this week to the ground. We'll get to that in a second. But over there, it's Dan Batten. What's going on, Dan?
What are you talking about, guys? This is a great week of SuperCoach for people who don't have Sam Flanders or Dane Zorko. This was a pretty decent, scored about on par with Harry Mackay, my man. So, yeah, a good week to be coming on for Al, I think, because I've had a decent one.
I would, in place of everyone having a good week, I would have been better served just running into a wall. Like just running at it full pelt and just like, I did that once when I was younger after, a few inebriated drinks and here and there. And I was told it was paper. That was wrong. It was a garage door. Anyway, before we jump in, remember
we need to unpack that at some stage.
That's why we don't give 8-year-olds alcohol, everyone.
Tough gear. Remember to sign up to SuperCoach Plus because you have all your break-evens, all your live scores, all the good stuff there. Projections this week are really, really important because it's bye weeks again. We're back, but you can also jump in for all the insights you need, codesports.com.au, where you can read all the good stuff. And speaking of the buys, we'll get to those in a second. There was a really good breakdown about how to, actually attack the buys on Code Sports. Fun times. But let's wrap round 11, shall we? Dan, heroes and villains, and how did you score?
Scored 2-4-0-7. My hero, apart from the two late goals from Hayden Young and Zach Merritt, I think it was probably Joe Richards. Had the emergency on him on the bench in my forward line. So I got to take him, which was good, but then only really got about 10 points from that because chose Tom Powell to bench instead of Harry Mackay, which, still take the little win. And my villain is probably Harry Mackay. Just another sort of game where he threatened to potentially score over 80, over 90, and then and at one stage maybe it looked like he was going to score 50, but ended up with a 70. So unsure how long I'll hold him. He does have Richmond about 2 weeks after the bye, which could be very, very lucrative. But yeah, he's still a top 7 forward though, which says a bit more about the forwards.
Yeah, just nonsense stuff.
I was at the game with my 5-year-old, and he loves Harry Mackay. He loves Charlie Kerner. I love this, and
Dan has a name.
In the back of my head the entire time, I'm like, if Harry would actually just take some of these marks, he would be smashing it in SuperCoach because he keeps creeping up the ground when they're playing Tom decoding by himself in the center and obviously playing as a second ruck. And it didn't happen until later in the game where he's actually getting into much more of the ruck contest. And there was about probably 3 or 4 times just on a wing, he has the mark and spills it. And you're like, that is just brutal.
Or misses one from 5 meters out like the week before. So
Not great.
Yeah.
Either way, Patch, heroes, villains, and your score.
Score was less than 2,400 by about 130 odd, 2,270, which was not as bad as I thought it was going to be coming into Sunday when I had 4 of my 16 players who had turned up and everyone else hadn't. There was going to be a bad time, and I was ready, getting myself ready to, change my name and flee the country and never speak about SuperCoach ever again.
Your legal name?
Yeah, that is it's how it appears on the passport.
And he's like Prince, but it's just Patch.
Yeah, it's just a symbol.
The artist formerly known as Patch,
But no, we had 2 very big heroes on the Sunday, and I'll give one of them to you, and I'll take Jordan Dawson for just tearing the Eagles to shreds. Had 80 points after the first quarter or something insane like that. So that was a very nice pick-me-up to get me past 2,000, let alone 2,200. So that was quite nice. Jordan Dawson, the hero. Villains, you know who you are. you know who you are, I say to my entire locker room full of players. Don't make me call you out individually. If it happens again, I will.
I'll do it. So anyway, Where did you end up this week, Jim? Horrible. That's literally like cracking 2,000 was like my goal by the end of Sunday. And I only just did it too. I think I had like 2,080 in the end. It was absolutely a horror show. Why was that? Villains. Caleb Sarong, Noah Anderson, Connor Rosey, Tom Green, Luke Jackson, Dane Zorko, Isaac Heaney,
Dan,
Stupid Sexy Flanders. He goes out as well.
While he lists them off. We'll be back in half a.
It's like my entire team just underperformed. You're like, this is horrible.
Noah Anderson especially is just kicking you while you're down.
When you're at the game as well, like especially, you're barracking for Carlton. You're like, this is great. But in the back of your mind, again, with the Harry Mackay stuff, you're like, geez, it'd be good if Noah Anderson did something. Just a couple of sneaky late goals or something just to get this moving along. But Sarong was a tough one as well against the Pies. Obviously, especially when you've got on the flip side, Nick Dacos crushing it. And I think he was one of those sort of flip the coin, VC options as well. Yep. You go Sarong on one side where he smashed it up the stadium. Dacos has really hit a nice patch of form as well. And I went with Sarong with the VC and I'm like, that sucks. That was absolutely brutal. But then I'm looking, a sliding doors moment of like the Dacos VC. If I had have gone with that, 130, you'd be like, sweet, we're loopholing. And then I would have usually have missed my usual captain, Maximus Gornicus, who is my hero, who ripped off 180. You beauty.
That would have been half of your team's score.
It was basically, it propped up my entire team at this point. It was shocking to see, but it was very fun. So he was very clearly my hero. The fact that he actually sort of went on in that game after having the fitness test beforehand was absolutely ridiculous.
Test did not look convincing either.
He was like limping during the fitness test. He's not going to play. Oh, he's out there. Oh. Cool. And then rips off 180 and dominates the entire game.
Did you consider taking the C off him at that stage?
I looked at it and went, I could switch this to Petrarca. Luckily, I didn't. Gordon makes it. It's all okay. But geez.
Sliding doors
What
moment.
a close run thing this was. But I was sitting there with luckily, the decision had been taken out of my hands because I had it on Sarong rather than Dacos, but I would have 100% loopholed Dacos and would have missed out on that. So it could have been worse, but it wasn't. All right. Other news, injury suspension gear for SuperCoach this week. The biggest thing, obviously, is this is the start of the mid-season bye rounds, and we have dual position players back again. We've got a whole new raft of them, but remember, 18 scorers this week. You've got your dreaded blue ticks. Count them up. Make your trades accordingly.
But we've got 3 trades.
We do. It's always a fun one. I've got 4. I've got one more boost still. This is great.
Whoa, hey, big spender.
Yeah, I get paid in boost though. That's how this works. So.
Right.
I don't actually get paid. It's fine. Anyway, the other gear. So take us through some of the dual position players there. Patch, we got any vibes on these ones?
We have vibes on exactly 3 players. After getting 60-something early on in the year, we've got, I think it's about a dozen players that have got DPPs. We care about 3 of them. That's it. Had far less lucrative, gains from the SuperCoach gods. We have Jack Sinclair is now midfielder as well as defender, and Ed Richards is in the same boat. He's now mid-eligible after being just a defender, which doesn't really help us in that if you've got them, you're going to play them down back. Anyway, the one that Travis Boak is now a forward somehow.
Interesting.
Dan, are we intrigued?
I wasn't really intrigued until I saw his last 3 scores of 94, 91 and 133. Obviously a big score over the weekend. I would be tempted if he was 350k, but he's 430k.
Which is that's like Zach
Very
Fisher
awkward.
price point.
Yeah. Except he's not getting cheap footy. So
No. And my concern with him is, as we mentioned before we got on air, is, those scores have come in games where Rosie has missed.
Yeah.
Wines was subbed out early, and then Rosie played deep forward on the weekend. Sorry to keep rubbing it in, James.
He scored 45, by the way, James.
So that's my concern.
I'm just so angry. He's so handsome and he's so good at football, and he still broke my heart.
Maybe you could sideways him to Boak.
I might actually do something along these lines. Who knows? Probably not to Boak though.
Yeah.
I'll kick the tires on something else.
Maybe.
Anyway.
That's the DPP news, which is not a lot.
Richards is an interesting case, right? Because you can see the at least possibility of him being still one of the best defenders for SuperCoach. Then mid doesn't really help you too much, but it's just obviously his role's changed since Lib has been out, so it's kind of neat. But
yeah, I mean, my concern is then there's whispers about Libba returning to football shortly. You know, as soon as this week he could play at some level, depending on how he goes during the week and how he goes getting back into training. You know, a lot of water to go under that bridge, but Libba returning probably changes that role a little bit. I don't know. But I mean, if you've got him, and he's probably going to miss this week with concussion anyway. So
brutal,
a brutal week, awful week of football.
And Jai Clark, Dan. So if you've held Jai Clark this entire time, you'd be like, all right, this is great. He's making money again. He's been suspended. Fantastic. What are we doing here, Dan?
Yeah, he's gone to collect Lockie Whitfield I'm sure. I think Tim Mitchell is gunning for him as well, going to jump the fence and bump him over with his score. But Jai Clark, you know, he's done a late bump on him, and he's actually clashed heads as well. And that clash of heads has sort of, you know, has meant that Lockie Whitfield's gone off for a concussion test. He ended up returning, but he's got the 1 week suspension. Unfortunately, the Cats have accepted that today. So, yeah, we'll be having to not trade him out. It's probably just hold him. Another annoying sort of just when we thought Jai Clark could, you know, reset his cash.
He ripped off 85, right, in that game. He was awesome.
He sure did.
It's like his best game, I dare say, for the year, right? And he's like, oh, come on, man. Come on.
And coming up against Richmond this week as well. Could have been a big cash generator, but not to be. And who knows if he'll still be in that side, you know, when his suspension is up.
Tough ones. But there's also some other vibes coming in during the mid-season, because there's also a mid-season draft, which is always fun. Dan, have you got some vibes on some names out there as well?
Well,
we're all vibes today, by the way, as well.
I've said the vibes are not good, but
I've said vibes about 87 times, and I'll continue to say it because I'm unapologetic. All vibes.
Well, a bit like the round 12 rookies in the AFL, there isn't too many coming up in the mid-season draft I think can play right away. You've got a guy, Jacob Blight, a key defender from the Waffle, who's been putting up some decent numbers, interceptor. He's probably our best chance of playing early. I wouldn't be taking a punt on any of these guys this week, though. I'd be waiting at least a couple of weeks because they could be in and out straight away. One who could be a contender, pretty much anyone who North picks, I think could be in the, like, you know, in terms of getting a game right away. Geordie Payne is right in there mix, I believe, for the number one pick. He's a quick forward, can play in defence as well, has the traits to be able to play right away. But at the same time, it's, you know, he might be playing a small forward role. You don't want to pick him straight away and have him be out within a week. There's been some talk that Trent Bianco could potentially be looked at by the Bulldogs. He's playing there.
The Dogs do love picking someone up from their VFL
exactly right. And we know Trent Bianco was a great rookie for us, 2 or 3 years ago. So another rookie who I picked up last year who wasn't so great for me, Bryn Teakle, was also in the mix and could be taken on Wednesday night as well. So
pick him on his mullet alone.
Yeah, just absolutely.
Immaculate hair vibes.
And he's been putting up some big numbers in the Waffle as well. So there are a few to look out for. Obviously, some clubs like a Brisbane or a Richmond who've got so many injuries might be looking to pick a mature ager, but more often than not, it's trying to get in on before the national draft. You're picking a guy who's got a bit of upside potential you can get before the national draft, which unfortunately doesn't bode too well for us super coaches.
Thank you. Well, the cool thing is, after a chaotic week, we've got some more chaos to follow. Because after round 11, one of the biggest talking points of SuperCoach, we'll start right there, it's the buys. Because this week we have the 57% owned Harry the Cheezel Sheezel. We then have the Heen-Man, Isaac Heaney at 55% ownership. Tom Green, my beloved Tom Green, 49% ownership. Brodie Grundy, Patch's best mate, 45%. Colby McKercher, 26%. Zane Dorco. Oh, jeez. You bring in Dane Zorko. It's like I've just completely put the mocker on him. I'm like, I went to Rankine 2 weeks ago. Boom. He gets injured. Zorko comes in, stinks up the joint. I'm like, this is probably my fault. But either way, Zorko 25%. Brucey revealed at 22%. Whoa, Royal Goulden at 20%. And Zach Fisher, beloved former Blue at 15% as well. That is a huge amount of players that are all very SuperCoach relevant, obviously by their ownership. Do we panic, Patch? Because I'm just at the point of panicking this week, I think.
I love a good panic as much as the next person. Big fan of just panicking all over the shop. I mean, there's not much point. Not much we can do at this stage if you haven't, unless you've got a time machine or unless you've got the capacity to invent a time machine, not much you can do. So panicking is probably not going to help you. I don't.
What
think
if I
there's-
had said time machine?
Well, then in that case,
I probably would have scored better than this.
Panic away, my friend. But no, I think and we'll talk to the Phantom a bit later on. He's got a few suggestions as well, but you can look at being a little bit creative in terms of some downgrading or some shifting around. But I think by and large, you've hopefully set a plan for this week. You know how many you're missing. Hopefully, you've got 19 or 20. And you just kind of ride it out.
Because that's it, right? Like when it comes to the buys, usually the first week of the buys, so you're not bringing in people who are still going to miss a game in like a week or two, right? So you can look to downgrade, try to bank some cash, get people coming off their buys, etc. It does feel with the dearth of rookies, which is what we're about to talk about with Phantom, it just makes it that much more difficult this year, right? So,
yeah, years gone by, you'd double downgrade or triple downgrade on the week of the buys, and you'd have all these rookies that are hitting their buy straight away, and you'd get rid of them. And we don't have any rookies coming onto their buy this week that are ready to go. Maybe Charlie Combin's about the only one that you'd ditch off, coming onto the buy, and then no rookies. It just as nada. So that then, I know, Dan, what are you doing this week as the highest scorer and smartest man in the room on the SuperCoach front? What are you doing? Help me, Dan.
Tell me what to do, Dan.
I think it might be time for me to finally get Sam Flanders. I reckon if he recovers from his illness, of course. Well, a lot of people will be zigging, will be sitting on their hands, not making many moves. I might try and zag. And get a Sam Flanders for Jordan Sweet. I mean, Jordan Sweet, if he's not named this week, he could be a ticket to a premium, I think, especially if you have got a little bit of cash in the bank. I double downgraded last week. Technically to one of those was to Sexton. But yeah, so I think I might look to get a guy like Sam Flanders he's got Essendon and then St Kilda. Or you could look to maybe save that cash if you don't have a Dane Zorko. He has Saints a couple of weeks after his bye. So there are a couple of options, I think, to look at. Obviously, Zorko not this week. But, yeah, it tends to be just looking at your buys, seeing which one you have the least players in. And I've actually got a little bit of an issue in round 14, which is why I'm contemplating not getting Flanders this week because it could hamstring me for 2 weeks down the track.
Yeah.
But by then, hopefully, you can trade out other people, like a Harry Mackay, for instance, who's on round 14. Because, I think being aggressive this year with your buy strategy, it can really help you shoot up the ranks.
Yeah. That's it. I mean, the trading strategy, so the biggest point going into this week, it's a really big talking point. Do you trade? Like, just do you? Like, we do have more trades than ever before this year. At the same time, I think I've got 16 remaining. I've got the one boost. So I could actually just go absolutely hog wild this week or just keep my powder dry.
Yep.
The state of my team probably tells me I should do some more trading, but I don't know. Like, we're all in roughly the same sort of boat where we've all used a lot of trades already. Like, what do you reckon? Is this the 1 week where you could just hold back?
I think there is merit to holding back this week and just kind of
Zach Merritt?
Zach Merritt this week, maybe. I think there's, you can certainly hold this week and, as you said, keep your powder dry, save the trades, and then go hog wild next week.
Yeah.
Just go ham. I'll be trying to get a little bit of cash this week so that I can potentially do 2 upgrades and 1 downgrade next week with the 3 trades instead of needing to go 2 down and 1 up next week or, scrambling for the cash next week. So I think I'll try and find a way to find some this week, but I don't think I'll be upgrading at this point because you don't want to upgrade into a primo who's going to then miss a game at some point over the next month.
Because I think if you look at the ownership numbers for a lot of the sort of folks like Closey or Combin, like et cetera, so Combin's not playing this week, Closey is. Like, it means that you can at least have one more look at Closey and hope that he gets to like that 77 break even or something, which puts off the decision until they get to their, round 14, I think, Gold Coast bye. By the way, round 14, Dan, like it is an absolute horror show already. I'm like, I've got 3 dudes. How is that possible? That shouldn't be at all possible, but it is.
One of them is your 5-year-old son.
I put him on. I'm like, how's he in here? This is awesome. But it's going to be absolutely chaotic. And I'm like, because ideally I'd be like, oh, I really need to keep boosting this score, right? We're falling completely off the face of the planet. Maybe I go out for Zeret or something like that. But at the same time, in the back of my head, I'm always like, oh, but round 14, I have 3 dudes.
Yeah.
So,
and it's important then as well that if you're really looking at your rank and focusing on your rank, like spending the time worrying about it over the next 4 weeks is not helpful because there'll be wild fluctuations.
Yeah,
there are people that plan to try and like win the cash prize during 1 week of the buy, so stack their team. There are people that will have just not looked at it and suddenly have monster scores this week, but be stuffed in round 14 or 15. Not getting too caught up in what exactly your score is each and every week, but it's coming out of it, how you're looking is.
I think the one exception to that potentially, if you wanted to make an aggressive play this week, is trading in a Fremantle or a Port Adelaide player. Obviously, they have their bye coming up, but it's a bye round with only 2 teams.
Yeah.
So if you didn't have a Zach Butters, for instance, if you didn't have maybe a Caleb Sarong, he's still probably a bit pricey. Or maybe anyone
twisting
but
the knife,
Rosie.
man. Oh, brutal.
He might be one to target in 3 weeks when he's 300K. But one of those sort of guys, you could, I think, get that little bit of point injection this week, especially if you are looking at maybe 18 players and you've got a few rookies on the field. You could look to do that. But at the same time, it probably is better for your team long term if you are trading, as you say, a Dane Zorko, for example, off this week's buy.
Yeah. Interesting. I think this might be like the one approach that I have. Like the Freo and Port thing is a really, really interesting point because I did think about like Rosie. I might end up just trying to save that cash, sideways training, or try to basically up and downgrade at the same time and say goodbye to my beloved C Rosie, which I do not want to do, but it's just this is the money that's sort of sitting there, right? He's got a break even of 179 this week.
Yeah.
And it might be one of the moves that I make. And I don't want to, but it might be forcing my hand. So here we are. Anyway, speaking of forcing the hand, let's go and have a chat with the Phantom where we force him to talk about a very, 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 very small amount of rookies with the Bubble Boys right after this. All right, now calling in from parts unknown in some sort of weird subterranean lair. You might call it that if you want. It's the Phantom. Phantom, what's going on?
Hello, guys. Interesting week of SuperCoach. What have I done, James? You all lovey-dovey on me last week. You've gone back to the early stages of the year, but it's that sort of week.
Yeah, I mean, this is, for me, it's basically is Carlton good again. I can just, be an arrogant Carlton supporter and just be like throwing it around. It's great. It's fantastic. But also, I'm just angry at the world because if you listen to earlier in the show, I've just had an absolute Barry Crocker shocker of a week on the old SuperCoach field. So I'm just lashing out. That's all it is.
But it's okay because Phantom's here and he's got lots of Bubble Boys and lots of rookies for us. So he'll improve the mood.
In their droves.
This is it. He comes in from the clouds and is going to save us with his reams upon reams of rookies that are right for the picking. Isn't that right here, Phantom?
Absolutely not this week. It is pretty bare bones. You've spoken about it already on the show. I'm not sure what we're going to do. Joe Richards, speaking about Barry Crockers, I had Joe Richards on the bench. 100 points didn't count, but as they say, 100 points on the bench is better than not at all. But Joe Richards already gone up 89K. He's 212K already. He might be the best downgrade option again.
That's awesome. This is a rookie crisis. I mean, we actually kind of flagged this a couple of weeks ago, right? Where it's like there were so few rookies that were basically in the pipeline that were like, this is where I think the conversations of Zach Fisher and stuff like that sort of happened, right? Even the Colby McKercher before he went and got injured. So what do we do here? Will Dawson with a break even of minus 46. That's lovely. Unfortunately, Phantom, he has the bye. So what are we doing here? What's our approach to this week? What are you vibing on?
He does. So Joe Richards, the 6th lowest break even in the comp. Will Dawson, the 5th lowest, not playing. The 4th lowest, Lecalier, not playing with the bye. The 3 names above that, all probably not paying. Ned Moyle, Sam Day, and Dante Vicentini, all probably not in their best sides this week at their respective clubs. So there is an issue. Joe Richards, 77% of SuperCoach teams at the time of recording don't have the Collingwood Young Guns. So you probably can still jump on now. Plenty of money to make. Can easily make another 100K without even scoring above 70 in the next 3 weeks. So you probably do that if you don't have him. Joel Frazier, you mentioned another option who's gone up in price, but you can probably go to. Will Dawson, I mean, you could go early on this week. Defender 4, we like what we've seen so far. The flexibility is there if you don't need him on field this week. it probably gives you more cash when you're talking downgrades to make an upgrade. But again, think about what you're going to do next week. You're going to want to downgrade next week. You're ruining him by going early there. So don't be afraid of those rookies that have had a price rise this week. Normally, we throw them into that ship sailed basket, but it's not a normal week in SuperCoach.
Speaking of those more expensive rookie-priced players, Phantom, we had, there's a Richmond guy who's played a couple of games in the 190K bracket, and I'm not talking about Kane McAuliffe. I'm talking about Camden McIntosh, who is 198K, I think it is, coming off a decent 90-odd on the weekend at Dreamtime. Had a few sub-affected games before that. Am I mad? Am I insane?
Patch, I respect you, but you replaced a Tiger supporter with another Tiger supporter on the show. We don't need to go down this path. Camden McIntosh, yes, a few sub-affected games, but if you go back and look at some of his scores, 80% plus time on ground, about 3 or 4 in the scores in the 30s. So a couple of weeks ago, scored 30-odd against Brisbane in 80% time on ground. So good score on the weekend. The Tigers were much better, much more competitive against the Bombers, but no thanks.
That is a premiership player you're talking about there, Fant. But I think with McIntosh, he's always that unrewarded runner, right? He's working up and down the ground on the fat side wing in the middle of the ground. So he's not really your SuperCoach pick, I don't think.
It's also because I think he was actually born in the 1830s because he looks like some sort of 1830s gold miner.
He looks like a war veteran. He looks like he's just walked into an RSL.
I'm pretty sure they brought up the fact that he's 30. I'm like, there is no way that he is 30 years of age. Maybe 130, or you can kick the can on that one, but otherwise, amazing. So for a man of his age and stature, it's incredible that he is still playing.
Yeah, wise beyond his years, which is why he's a perfect SuperCoach option. Maybe. Citation needed.
He saved SuperCoaches in the past before when he was first coming onto the scene. I remember vividly a Thursday night game. I think he scored 100, did he, on debut around the marks in SuperCoach. A big rookie option, but unfortunately, like you mentioned, that was a number of years ago. So I'm not going to be going there.
Is it worth maybe looking some of the other one-gamers here, Phantom, like Nate Caddy, McMullen and co? Like, is this one of those weeks where you go, we have buys, obviously. Do we roll the dice?
A good question. Toby McMullen, the sub, but came on, scored very well. I know Dan Batten liked him in his draft year, and the Giants obviously rate him quite highly, but Nate Caddy, they have Harrison Jones. Does he come back in for the Bombers? Caddy was quite good, attacked the ball in the air and showed just why the Bombers used that early draft pick on him. But I don't think you could pick him with any confidence. McMullen maybe a little bit more, but I wouldn't be going there just yet. Obviously, the Giants do have the bye, so another issue there. You'd like to see one more after that, makes it a bit harder. But I wouldn't. I'd probably start to think a little bit different, like we've spoken about. There's no Alex Sexton available this week. Christian Salem could be the closest option. Negative break even for him, 360k. SuperCoach ton on the weekend. We know he can score. He's come back. He's worked his way back into that side after another injury. So they're the types of options. Do you downgrade or sideways trade a premium on the buy, let's say, and make some money that way to make another upgrade? So you have to start thinking a little bit differently or continue to do so if that's what you've done over the past month.
There is also Kane McAuliffe, who's now played 4 games and is still under the 200k.
Yes.
We alluded to Camden McIntosh, but obviously Kane McAuliffe, aka Al Payton's favourite player of all time for the Richmond Tigers. Like at 198, he's one of those sort of players where you look at it and go, probably fine. Like if we talk about job security, that Tigers team has a lot of outs, but they will also start getting players back. So that's just another big question mark for me as well, right?
Yep, good South Australian boy, Kane McAuliffe. Watched plenty of him over here last year.
Really, off those numbers, Dan I can Batten, see you just...
Dan Batten would know. We don't have enough time to go through his junior numbers because they're pretty big. So we won't do that on this show. Maybe the Lair, if you listen later in the week. But he was good again in the midfield. A lot of contested possessions, tackles for the Tigers. But the thing that separates Joe Richards a little bit in this conversation is Richards has the 200s to his name and one from the weekend that will be in his price cycle for the next couple of weeks. So you're guaranteed almost another 100K. McAuliffe, not going to make money that fast. So whether you're thinking of flipping him in a couple of weeks, you probably can't do it like you will with Richards. But again, if you need a scoring option, you need to field a player. When the Tigers don't have the bye, then he could be an option.
And Phantom, just finally, Jordan Sweet was back on the weekend. Will he continue to be back for those who are desperate for some cover for their rise this week?
Putting it pretty loosely there, I think, Patch. Obviously wasn't as big as he was a few weeks before when Dante took his spot. Ivan Soldo got through the limited minutes in the sample on the weekend. Big game for the Power on Thursday night. I think the only chance Sweet survives is if they go with the double ruck combination to counter Carlton's tools. But again, Charlie Dixon was rested last week and he's probably coming back into the side. So I reckon, unfortunately, for Supercoaches, it's probably going to be Soldo and Big Charlie on Thursday night for the Power. But Sweet up to Tim English for me, I think. So bite the bullet, dump him.
Not bad. There you go. All right. Well, it's very thin on the ground there, Phantom, but you're the best in the business for a reason, because that was a very, very solid 9 minutes of trying to dig through the morass there and just find a couple of gems. So appreciate your time. Thanks for jumping on once more.
See you guys.
All right. How good was that? I'll tell you what, a lot of insight for not a lot of names that Phantom could be throwing around, but he does his job pretty well, I'll tell you. Anyway, the good thing is we're now getting to the quickfire round. Quick! Save my season, Dan. Jordan Ridley, yes or no?
No, not right now. I think we need to wait at least another week.
Patch?
Yes. Get on board.
Get on board.
I wasn't convinced until about 10 minutes into the first quarter, and then I'm like, no, I've seen enough.
Well, the good thing is you're not biased in any way, shape, or form.
No,
so
I'm the most neutral a human being has ever been on the situation of Jordan Ridley.
Tell my wife I said hello. Jordan Ridley, though, is at 530, rips off 162 against the Tigers. I think we probably do need to see that one more week because it was the Tigers, and you're like, this is what happens sometimes. So,
the only annoying thing is if you wait 1 week, he has one game and then the bye. Yep. So, yeah, you could jump on and try and get 2 weeks out of him. But, yeah, it definitely is a risk. And he's not going to be playing Richmond every week.
Yeah, I think if you don't get him this week, you wait until after the bye.
Yeah,
right.
definitely.
And, he'll be slightly more expensive, but you'll get more of a knowledge about how Essendon's backline works. But he's playing that ideal role. Last year he spent time as the second tall.
Yep.
He's playing a third tall interceptor, doing whatever he wants kind of role, which is fantastic for him. So
your beloved Bomb Rays also, however, play Gold Coast this week in the final game of the round at People's First. So it's a little bit of a trickier sort of thing if they were playing down here at the G or something like that against like a worse opponent. I'd feel okay about it. But
I mean, on the flip side, the Suns play very good at People's First Stadium, which, as an aside, sounds like a communist naming system for a stadium.
Yep.
Like glorious Hardwicks, Supreme Leader.
In the middle of Stalingrad, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Nice.
What was I saying?
Just a big statue of Dimmer out the front. He's wearing a cap. Like, all right, this is a bit weird.
Big statue of Carmichael Hunt, please. I was saying
Ben
something.
Leningrad?
Oh, that's good.
He's got the jokes. Anyway.
Sean Lemon's grad.
Okay, let's move on.
Jordan Ridley could see a lot of the ball because the Suns play good
Yep.
in Leningrad.
Yeah, anything above North South Wales, they'll be fine.
Yeah.
Cash in this week. Yes or no? Yeah, nah. Darcy Wilson, Patch.
Nah, he plays West Coast.
Ooh, break even of 87. Ben?
I reckon hold.
Okay. Sam Darcy, Patch.
Yep.
95 is that break even too, which is a bit tough.
That's too high.
Dan?
He plays at Marvel as well, and he hates Marvel.
Yeah, that is a good point. It's weird for a tall to hate Marvel, right? It goes, 217 centimetres to actually not like it there. But, yeah, I'd say trade.
Well, he also looked like he was going to tear the game open early sticks on Thursday night and then didn't see the ball again.
Well, then Tim Mitchell tweeted about how well he was scoring, and then he stopped scoring well.
That's the classic one.
That's how it always works.
Those powers are ridiculous. If only could use them for good instead of evil. Sam Closey, break even 77. This is a really interesting one, fascinating one. What do you reckon, Dan? Yeah, nah?
I am probably going to hold just because there's no options.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm holding. I want extra bodies on field for the buys.
I'll pay that. And then finally, he's on the bye this week. Charlie Comben for the North Melbourne Clarko Roos, 48. That's a tricky one as well. He is sort of the kind of player that has popped up with a big sort of surprise score every so often. But on this bye, it feels like the one that you could just, he's been very solid the last 3 weeks, 98, 80, 87. It feels like that's maybe a hold just because you come out of the buys and if he has one more good game, you're still making cash. But if you want to sacrifice somebody this week, break even 48. I don't know. It's a tough one. What do you reckon, Dan?
Yeah, I agree with you there. I think Clarko did throw him forward one stage during the game, which is a little bit of a concern. But I think, he's one you could potentially hold for a few weeks. But if you're going to trade him just the week after the bye anyway, then by all means, if it can get you to a premium, go for it.
Nice one. Obviously, I think the last quickfire round question is always boost or no boost. And I think if you've got a boost left, you're a psycho like me, who probably should have used it already. So boost! I'm going to have to probably use it in one of the next 2 weeks.
Well, I mean, we've all got boosts for the next 4 weeks.
Everybody's got a boost.
So it's
True.
boost for everyone.
How quickly, do you think you'll end up burning through every trade you possibly have? When do you reckon you'll hit that point, Patch?
Hopefully not until the end of the season.
Hopefully.
Hopefully I still have some towards the back end of the year. But, I mean, it often doesn't happen. But once I hit, 6 is the point that I hit, and I'm like, and no more unless it's a long-term injury. So, I mean, I might try and keep it at 8, but it depends on how we go upgrading. I checked the amount of trades I had left for the first time last night while playing around with 3, and it was far less than I was hoping. But I also can't count, so that
has been one of the fun parts of this year in SuperCoach as well. Everyone's been spending trades like we're an NRL team, like in Vegas or something. It's just making it rain. It's like trades. You get a trade. You get it. We're Oprah as well. It's awesome. The captain's call for this week. An interesting setup. I feel like this week.
It's not very fun with the options.
It's fine, right? Sam Walsh against Port was one that sort of popped off straight away for me as a VC option. Probably still going to go Gawn just because he's tearing everybody up. They are playing in the TIO Traeger Park, right? So
Darwin.
So it's in the NT. Bit
Darwin
of a tricky
Alice?
one.
That's
Maybe
Alice.
Sorry.
Yeah.
And then obviously Geelong up against the Tigers. Always interesting, but they haven't
Jai
really
Clark, VC. Oh, he's just ruined that. He's put that to bed, hasn't he?
Max Holmes, if you've got him.
Yeah.
Genuine shout.
Rowan Marshall maybe against the Eagles is probably an interesting one as well. It's a Saturday afternoon game, which I don't feel like they ever sort of play our time out east. So it was an interesting one. But Dacos as well, Nick Dacos up against the Dogs Friday night at Marvel. He could continue that sort of, rare vein of form. I'm probably going to roll the dice with Sam Walsh because I feel like if he had to use the ball a little bit better, especially just inside 50s on the weekend, he would have had a monster score, but just really butchered it to put it nicely.
Sort of been the case for him all year, hasn't it? Yeah.
So he's had a couple of really good ones, when he's actually hit the targets. And so this could be an interesting one against a Port team that this game should be pretty tight, pretty close, pretty good. So I'll probably roll the dice with him and then probably go into Gawn. Patch?
Yeah, I don't know. I get worried against by teams coming up against Port Adelaide. They just don't tend to give away a lot of points. And, they've got so many players that are just hoovering up points in the midfield. Zach Butter's under consideration, but I don't know. It just feels like, I don't love that game as a concept. We'll probably just...
Conceptually, you're against it.
I just, it's time someone took a stand, Jaymz.
There was only one man who didn't like this game of football. It was Patch.
So I think I'm going to go Dacos VC.
Nice.
I don't know. Just vibes. We're a vibes-based show today without Al to rein it in. C, hopefully I don't need it, but Jordan Dawson maybe?
Oh, Dawson, I reckon you definitely VC him. I'm jealous as a non-Jordan Dawson owner of Dawson owners, and I reckon I'd almost consider trading him in this week purely for that matchup.
Yeah,
just to VC him against the Hawks.
Concerned by looking at what the Hawks did to Zorko and,
It's true.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. The Hawks are good and I hate it. And it's just really uncomfortable. And I don't know. I don't feel super confident captaining anyone against them.
Yeah.
And also, I don't think they'll pay as little respect to Dawson as the Eagles did on Sunday. So that's where I've landed.
Any other vibes there, Dan?
Yeah, it's actually a really tough one. I think I might just end up going VC Bont. We've overlooked him in recent weeks. He fired back with a 135. So probably Bont VC, but also we can obviously VC all the way through the round as well. with all those blue dots in our side. So you could even VC a Luke Ryan into a Sam Flanders type or Zach Merritt late on the Sunday. So I might even do that, go either a Max Gawn or Luke Ryan and never really choose the wrong one.
You got to really thread that needle for the 1 p.m. early start and then the 4 p.m. Sunday start, the Sunday Arvo start.
You've then got the issue of, I suppose with the buys it makes it a bit easier, but if you don't have like a non-playing player on field.
Yeah, it's easy just
you
to
run
go.
the risk of Luke Ryan scoring 150 and going, I don't have anyone I can captain. Oh, then everyone's locked out. Oh, no. And then...
That is true. So you would have to have the backup plan of it. Matt Rowell, for instance, for you, he could absolutely have a field day up there. So
he could. Glorious comrade, Matthew Rowell.
Nice one. All right. Name of games, game of names. It's a name of games. It's the games of names. Al, I think, got another win on the board last week against me. I think that makes him 3-8 for the season. So, look,
he's better than Richmond now.
He's doing it way better than Richmond. That's fantastic. I think that was the James Jordan tag last week and actually went to Dale, which is what Al said. So there you go.
Well done, Al.
Nice one. This week, Patch, what do you reckon? Do you want to go head-to-head with me? I think we've got Kick in Pig War.
Ooh.
Which sounds like...
as an old, very bad suburban footballer who occasionally sprinted to take a kick out, it was the only time I'd sprint during a game.
Is that when you had to kick it to yourself back in those days?
I didn't have to, but did anyway. Extra possession, looked cool, only fell over twice.
The Kick in Pig War also sounds like the sequel to the Great Emu War, so this could be pretty cool. Luke Ryan had 10 last week, played on from all of them as well. Jeremy McGovern was very sort of lone bright spot against the Crom. He had 9, played on from all 9 as well. I don't have either Ryan or McGovern, which is much to my own, I don't know, dismay.
But why do you need them when you've got Connor Rozee?
Yeah. It's killing me. Anyway, so what do you reckon? Ryan versus the D's or McGovern versus the Saints?
I feel like the Saints, well, I don't know. I mean, I feel like the Saints should have more scoring shots, but it is now over there.
Yep.
They'll be fired up. Maybe the Eagles will win. I've been a Luke Ryan truther for a long while now. Big fan.
All right.
I'm gonna back him in.
Nice one. I'm gonna go McGovern then. Feeling okay about that. See how we go. I think they'll be much better this week than last week. Going home,
well, they can't be
dudes.
worse.
No, they can't.
They cannot be worse.
All right, Monday moves. Have we got any moves here yet, Dan?
Yeah, I think my Monday move, that talk of McGovern, actually it was more of a Sunday night thought bubble that I could trade Jordan Sweet to Jeremy McGovern. He's got a couple of pretty favourable matchups.
With a lot of
DPPs
with a lot
of few DPPs absolutely
okay.
everywhere. But obviously they have the Saints this week. I think they have another pretty juicy matchup after that, and that is North Melbourne. So could be plenty of intercepts for him. And it's just he's the sort of guy who can have 18 disposals and score 100. And when he gets over 20 disposals, he can potentially go 110. So
and he's a contested intercept marking beast, and that's a lot of points.
With the kick ins, he's getting 8, about 7, 8 kicks, just, long kicks down the line, easy points. So yeah, that is a Monday/Sunday night thought bubble for me.
Nice one, Patch.
My Monday move was a triple downgrade. I'm now going to go back and take Camden McIntosh out of my side after getting berated by the Phantom over it. But I don't know. I'm playing around with. I've got Tom Brown on my bench. Can't get him onto the field for my 22, no matter which way I swing it, because Sam Closey's sitting there on that last spot. So I might go him to Will Dawson because Brown's going to lose a bit of cash. So maybe I'll tinker around the edges a bit. But I'm trying to build a war chest. Won't be looking to bring in any primos at this stage, aside from maybe, and we've skipped over him a bit, Christian Salem.
Ooh,
maybe, who's a 345k, has a 99 and a 121. As the Phantom mentioned, has one of the lowest break-evens in the comp this week. We had him down at the top and then we've immediately skipped over him. But yeah, he could rise like 80k, 100k in the few weeks before his bye. Has a midfield role, has DPP mid-defense. Could be a perfect M9, D7 swing if you don't get rid of him. So he's in my thoughts as well. Well done to Dossie on the Phantom's Lair for bringing him up last week.
This is why you listen to the end, folks, because you get little, nuggets like this.
Oh yeah, this is not for people that, listen to 10 minutes and then duck out when the Phantom appears. You got to put up with the Phantom to get the real juice.
Very nice. I think my Monday move was trying to figure out the best sort of upgrade over Rosie for that middle spot. And like whether or not it was literally just going to Butters, which is always hilarious. You're like, but that was my decision at the start of the year that I didn't want to do. Anyway, and then sort of maybe using Sweet as another downgrade just to free up some more cash there too. That's probably where I'm landing. Like it's weird that I think that'll involve 2 trades would involve 3 port players, but that's where we are. Desperation stations, actually.
That's the way the crook. Let's
now
try
that.
Again. Moving.
This is why you don't listen to the end.
Nice one. All right, but that is it for the round 12 preview. The buys are here. This is where
the buys.
We separate the wheat from the chaff. The chaff from me fell away weeks ago. Dig into all things SuperCoach across all the socials, of course, Twitter, YouTube, IG, TikTok. X is the same thing as what I said earlier. Smash the Fandom's Lair, of course, later in the week, as well as rating the show on Spotify and Apple Podcasts and all that good stuff too. Sign up to SuperCoach Plus if you haven't already. What are you doing? Like you're missing out on a trick right there. All of the break-evens, projections, all the good stuff there, and all the insights you need as well. Codesports.com.au and all the latest news and fun gear 3 times a week, Sunday, Wednesday, and Thursday. The AFL Today Show. It's a good one because I'm on it. That's not why it's good, but it's also good and I'm also on it. But there you go. But once more, thanks to Patch for jumping in L's seat.
Thank you for letting me jump in L's seat and butcher some phrases and twist some knives.
Very nice. And thanks to Dan for sitting in Patch's seat.
It's been a pleasure.
Nailed it. Good job. And of course, thanks to Phantom. All right, I've been Jaymz Clements. In between now and next week, happy super coaching.